Welcome back to the Phazon Labs, powered by World 1-1 and sponsored by Phazon Flakes, a radioactively mutagenic part of a delicious breakfast. I am, as always, your host, Larry the Bearded Wonder. Joining me this week is my trusty co-pilot, Isabel Bramman.
Hello, as always.
And this week we're back and we're taking a temporary reprieve from our usual elevator pitch shenanigans and nonsense to just kind of touch base, update, and theorize and speculate a little bit about the wonderful pile of new info that is got our brains roiling with possibilities from the newest Dread report, where we got 34 seconds of brand spanking new footage from Metroid Dread, as well as some other info. So without further ado, let's dig in. So first things first, probably the most prominent thing, and spoilers ahead if you have not already seen the new footage from the Dread report. So, you know, spoilers are a thing here, sort of, in so much as we know and have seen 34 seconds of spoilers. But the rest of this is, you know, speculation, because while we've seen some things, we don't have a whole lot of context to go with those things yet. So that's part of what we're talking about here, because that's in our wheelhouse anyways. It's just, you know, wild speculation and rampant theorizing. So, I will say, biggest thing jumped out at me instantly. Holy shit, that gold suit.
Yes. I saw that and I was like, that suit, mwah. Yes. If the Dread suit, the red, white, and blue one is good, oh man, that gold one is even better. It's just
that is straight up pimp suit Samus.
Yes.
That suit is one gold chain and an oversized clock away from being the Flava Flav suit. Somebody photoshopped me that. I need that in my life. Yeah,
and it's interesting because it looks like as though she's walking out of the ship with that at the beginning. So
she is. You can see it.
Yes, of the teaser. So it kind of like is weird, and is wondering, is this going to be the suit that you have at the beginning, at the end, or what? What do you think about that? Because I'm not really sure at this point. So,
my speculation is we're looking at the Dread version of the Various suit, and that she's got it walking into the beginning of the game. Hence, you know, walking off her ship, and then the beginning of the game, that opening cinematic, is going to tell us what happened, how she lost her powers between Fusion and the beginning of Dread here. I'm sure is going to happen right at the beginning of Dread, and gets stripped down to the blue and white Dread suit, which I suspect is the base Dread suit at this point, because this ties to some of my other speculation that you know, the whole beginning of Dread, the story premise that we've been set up with, that you know, there was an intercepted transmission that the X-parasites are alive on ZDR, is just bait for a trap to catch her. And that at the beginning she gets caught and then escapes, and she is trying to escape, hence why we see her land and walk off her ship on the surface of the planet. But you start the game from the bottom of the map and you're trying to get back up to your ship.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I've got good money on exactly that.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, like, where the Chozo that we see in the teaser comes into play with this. Like, I wonder if he sent the transmission, or did the Federation? Is he working with the Federation? I'm feeling that this Chozo is a, you know, sort of a rogue element, that he's not working with either the Federation or the X or whatever. I think he's, you know, a completely different kind of enigma in this. And I'm not sure if he's an ally at this point, but I don't think he's an enemy. So
I've got some theories on the Chozo here. One, we don't have definitive confirmation if that Chozo is the same one that showed up in the initial trailer at E3 a month or so ago. But we do know that the one that we saw, or at least I am reasonably certain, I'll put it that way, I can't say definitively, but I am reasonably certain that the one that was shown in the new Dread report is not a red herring and is actually physically present on ZDR during the events of the game, because you see him standing in front of an Emmy door. So you have textual placement for this Chozo.
Yeah, the Emmy door is definitely the biggest, I think, clue there, for the fact that it might not be a good guy, I guess. But I want it to be a good Chozo. I don't want it to be an evil Chozo. So.
I feel like we're gonna get both in here. I do, and here's why. And here's another piece of my theory from what we just saw, because the Dread report shows footage, which, you know, for the first time in high def and beautifully animated and all that, but we see footage in Dread of basically the events of the Chozo memories from Samus Returns. I'm betting you here we have one of the Chozo that managed to escape those events, that one of the ambivalent ones, or, you know, at least the good ones, we'll call them, I suppose, that escaped those events and that massacre from the final Chozo memory. And that Samus is learning about the events that were depicted in the Chozo memories here in Dread for the first time as a character. We know it, we've seen it as a player, but if you look at what, you know, how it was presented in Samus Returns, Samus doesn't have this information yet. She doesn't know that piece of history.
Yeah, that's
so
a good
I'm
point.
betting you this information is being disseminated by a Chozo that managed to escape the events of the Chozo memory. And I am going to string together this theory further and say that this Chozo is probably, or at least possibly, helping Samus rebuild her suit and her abilities. Because who's better suited, pun intended, I suppose, for this, than the person, or at least, a member of the species whose tech built it in the first place.
Plus, she also has Chozo DNA, and theoretically, well, even though it's sort of a weird, sticky thing that she sort of doesn't really have Metroid DNA anymore, even though that's sort of not really, who knows at this point. I'm not really sure if she still does or not, even though at the end of Fusion she isn't really supposed to have it, but who knows if it's still there. I'm not really sure. So yeah,
I haven't seen anything definitively that says she doesn't.
Yeah, so
because if you go by the end events of Fusion, she's got human, Chozo, Metroid, and X-Parasite DNA all floating around in her. Yeah, so but that's a big genetic cacophony.
Yeah, I wonder though if the X and the Metroid DNA cancel each other out though. But that's just my wondering. That, like you said, there's no definitive proof, and I'm hoping that we get that in Dread, because that's been a question that I've been thinking about for the longest time now. Is does she still have the Metroid DNA or not? So.
My gut says yes.
Now,
go ahead. I think another big question here, and seeing this footage only re-raised it for me, is I want to know how much time has passed between the end of Fusion and the beginning of Dread, and what she's been doing in the meantime.
Yeah, especially
there's a lot that they could dump in there in terms of story just to get to the events of Dread and set it up.
Yeah, especially because I know that people have been is she still working with the Federation or not? I mean, I hope that she isn't, only because at the end of Fusion, she's like on the run from the Federation.
Yeah, she's on the outs.
So it would be weird to have her be working with the Federation again, unless if
Agreed.
they somehow are being like, we have this mission for you, and if you do this, then like all is forgiven or something like that. But that also doesn't really make sense because Samus knows that they've been cloning Metroids and that kind of stuff, and she's smart enough to know that there's this rogue faction in the Federation and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of like another weird sticky kind of situation where it's kind of stuck into a corner that I hope Dread kind of unsticks itself out of. But yeah, I'm trying to think of how best that could go about, but I think maybe if they focus less on the Federation and more on the rogue Chozo, I think that would be better overall.
Oh yeah.
For the story. So, but one thing that did excite me was reading the Dread report was that they mentioned like flexibility of gameplay, like super style, and that really kind of excited me a lot because they must know, and about like the speed running and that kind of stuff, and about in Super, so they must have some sort of built that in there and that kind of thing. To what extent?
They did say it would be possible.
Yeah, to what extent I don't know, but yeah, that I'm wondering what are your thoughts about that?
Well, it wouldn't be the first time it's been officially acknowledged either, because they had it built into Fusion, which is how you got to the one little hidden dialogue scene between the shadowy Federation dude and Adam. So, it's not the first time. So I'm kind of, the way it reads to me is that I'm under the impression that, yes, there's an intended order, and while it's not intentional, if you work at it, you can break that order and do some sequence breaking. But basically that it's not intentional, but they didn't go out of their way to stop it either. That it just kind of ended up there, and they're like, you know what? Let's know people are going to have fun with it. Let them have their fun. Go.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because that's what
my hunch.
Because that's what it sounded like with Super's development as well, is that they kind of made these sort of like, not like glitches, but they kind of made these sort of things, and they were playing around with them, and they thought, well, why don't we just let the playtesters try them out? And then the playtesters said, well, just keep them. So
right.
So yeah.
I think the biggest thing that they're probably running into, and I can imagine just in terms of development challenge to try and hammer out, is finding the ways that they can that you can sequence break in it, and making sure you don't end up getting soft locked.
Yeah, that's definitely the hardest part. Yeah.
So.
But they must have like an intended route, and then they must have like ways to look at around the playtesters. Obviously, my guess is they probably have some speedrunners in the playtesters that are trying to break the game as much as possible. So
probably somewhere.
Yeah. So that would be my guess. But yeah, what a way to set up the anniversary was to drop that. So yeah.
Oh, here's another piece that I think was just further and better emphasized too with the new footage, is that the Chozo had been here for, like, there was an established Chozo colony, because I mean, if you're looking around, you've got the hieroglyphs on the wall, there's Chozo statues throughout, and not just like small item holding, like big huge monuments. that their civilization spent time here.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, too, the official acknowledgement that, you know, while rarely seen anymore, the species isn't extinct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That was
I'd
definitely
be... My big hope, honestly, is that where this sits in the timeline, that there's, you know, a handful of years have taken place between Fusion and Dread, and that Samus has spent some time maybe wandering around trying to find some of the last Chozo around the galaxy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
I think that would make the most sense story-wise. And then as they're traveling around, that's when they encounter the transmission.
yeah.
Like a decoded transmission or something like that. Yeah,
Mhm.
I kind of like that idea for kind of like our opening hook.
Yeah.
The opening narration.
Also, I don't know if you noticed, it was pointed out to me, and I had to go back and rewatch, but I also had to like really crank up the volume to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
But the first like 7 seconds of the new footage, you can hear Adam's voice in it.
Yeah, that robotic voice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell what he's saying though. It's very garbled. Were you able to make it out?
I could hear him make out, or I could make out hearing him say Samus's name, but beyond that, no. But his voice in general is not just, you know, a straight human voice. It's very digitized and processed, and you hear it too. And I missed it the first time up until now when it was pointed out, and I went back. But if you go back to the treehouse footage where Samus walks into one of the communication rooms, there's a couple of seconds right before they cut away where you can hear and you can make out exactly what Adam is saying, and you can hear his voice. And it's still that same very digitized, very processed, synthesized voice. But there's only a couple of seconds of it, but you can also hear it line up with the text of his dialogue on the screen as well. So we know how it's going to sound. I'm also wondering too, obviously, given that there is voice work in this, do we get a fully voiced game, or is Adam the only one with speech in this, like actual voice speech? You know, if it is fully voiced, do we hear the Chozos speaking in native Chizodian, or do, you know, like we heard the Luminoth in Echoes, or are they speaking translated in English or Interlac or whatever the fuck they decide they want to call it and use here? And, you know, big question, does Samus have spoken and voiced dialogue in this?
My hope is that there is a couple lines for Samus, like at the beginning, and maybe like a couple very like, you know, like very like poignant scenes or something like that, or, you know, like impactful scenes. But I also think that actions speak louder than words too, for Samus, in the sense that like they do a really good job, I think, from what I've seen, with how her body language kind of speaks volumes. And I think I would love to see more of that. So like I said, I think like the right balance, I think, would be good. And I think for the Chozo, I think if they do something similar, like with the Luminoth, I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. To get that sort of, you know, like, what does Chozodian sound like? I'm curious. Would it sound more like a bird? Would it sound more, you know, like a kind of synthetic sound, like kind of how the Luminoth kind of had like a synthetic noise, or would it be something completely different? I kind of hope it's just like a screeching bird. That would be funny.
I'm almost with you. I want kind of a bird speak sound, but maybe with a little more base, given that they've got some size to them.
Yeah.
So
I think it would also be hilarious if he just like opened his mouth and just like screamed at some point, like, and it was just like a bird scream. Yeah. Like maybe at the very end when he heroically sacrifices himself to save Samus or something like that. That's what I'm gonna call it. Is that at the very end the SAX is gonna come back to life, and the Chozo is gonna sacrifice himself to save Samus, and that's the canon ending of Metroid Dread. Hire me, Nintendo. So yes. But yeah, like going over the Dread report, they like, it seems like it's interesting how they took a bunch of elements from different aspects of different games, like the stealth sections from Zero Mission, and then obviously the SAX scenes they developed into like the Emmy kind of scenes.
Yeah, less scripted, more
freeform.
RNG. Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like as though they're really trying to, like look at what works, or like what makes each one kind of unique,
Right.
and like how can we improve upon that, I guess, which I think is good. I think that from what I've seen is that they've made like this, because I love Zero Mission, but that stealth section also makes me cry inside.
Why?
Because I am bad at it. So, and like the SAX scenes are also really good, but like you said, they're scripted and stuff, so they're kind of like, once you know the script, they're kind of just, oh no, it's another chase scene. So, yeah, and so like it sounds like as though they're trying to take what is good and make it better, which I like a lot. I think that this is going to be a really, really, really good game, and I am just so excited for it. So,
oh yeah,
and
this wait is just fucking unbearable.
Yeah, but what a way to start off the 35th anniversary. Like,
oh, I know, it's so bizarre to me to see Nintendo actually putting marketing and advertising behind this for once in like a meaningful way, instead of, oh wait, shit, we probably should have made a commercial. Here you go.
Yeah.
And then you never hear from it again.
Yeah, I think they have learned from past things, and which I think is good. I think that whatever they know, they understand that this is gonna be a lot of people's first Metroid game. There's a lot of stuff to catch up with, so I think it's good that they're doing as much, like backstory, I think, and like letting people in on some kind of the lore and knowledge of the series for, Dread.
Right.
So, but yeah, I was definitely surprised to see it, but it was not an unwelcome surprise at all. So
it's definitely interesting seeing them put so much work into bringing people up to speed with the events of the series to get ready for Dread, as opposed to just making the games available on the fucking Switch.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It makes me wonder why they're sitting on all that, and I don't know what their plan is with that, and it's just sad. I just find that sad, because
it's sad and frustrating.
Yeah, because I saw first of all, it's Pokemon, but I saw a copy of Pokemon Platinum for $249 at at a secondhand game store today. And
Jesus.
yeah, and there was also Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn for $260, and it's just like, those would be really good on something called the Nintendo Switch Online, because those aren't making you money anymore. But I digress. It's a band-aid on a gaping wound, but it's a band-aid nonetheless. And I get that the people that run the social media can only do so much for trying to make up for what Nintendo does / will not do. So
yeah, I was talking to somebody on Twitter in Spaces a couple days ago, and he was saying that like hard copies of Fusion and Zero Mission are north of 150 now. Just like, Jesus God, never thought I'd see the day that the price point on Metroid games, aside from maybe Super, are through the damn roof.
Yeah, and yeah, it's like a, again, yeah, like people want to play the games before Dread, and that's, and not saying that there isn't another way, but not legally condonable, but if you want to save your money, and Nintendo is not going to be able to get your money anyway through these legal means, then that. But anyway, so yeah. But one more thing about the trailer. I think.
What'd you see?
Those images that they had of the Chozo memories, they were just very similar to the Chozo memories from Samus Returns, but they were also very slightly different. Like the one of them that had like the gates from Samus Returns. There was like an Omega in the background.
I saw that.
Yeah. So like it seems like as though this is going to be like a flashback from a different point of view, possibly that one Chozo. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what events transpired from the perspective of someone who was there, because those memories are fantastic. They're beautiful, but they also leave a lot of room for interpretation.
Yeah, no kidding. This also makes me wonder too, how much of Dread was in motion by the time they were finishing up Samus Returns. Because obviously those Chozo memories are tying into Dread here. So it sounds to me like Mercury was far enough into Samus Returns development that Nintendo saw something they liked, and Sakamoto was like, yep, you guys are the guys. Help us set this up. Here's where we want to go with it. Here's what you need to know. Sneak this in so that we have a bridging gateway.
Yeah. Yeah, that would probably make the most logical sense, I feel. That it was like a test. Just to see the capabilities of Mercury's team. And then while they were developing that, they were sort of preparing the groundwork for Dread. So, yeah.
But yeah, I'm willing to bet you that there was some overlap in the end of Samus Returns development and the beginning work on Dread.
Yeah, I feel like you're probably right.
My guess is Sakamoto got the green light for Dread and went to Mercury and said, all right, this is what's next. Here's what we need to sneak in here to set it up.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes the most sense now that I think about it. Yeah. Because it's too much of a coincidence.
This feels way too entwined for them to not have known.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, given the way that the Chozo memories are presented in Samus Returns, it wouldn't have been all that hard for them to basically just slip that in at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
because it's
I don't
tied
think
to
there was
100%.
necessarily a lot of overlap, but I think there was definitely a little at the end.
Yeah. Because from what I remember, it's tied to 100% completion. So it's not like as though it's like a speed run requirement. It's
item percentage, yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's definitely exciting to see. Like 34 seconds has made me so intrigued, and yet like has answered none of my questions, and like that is like the perfect teaser, I think. Like it has answered like a lot of questions, but at the same time has answered none of them, if that makes sense. So
there's a lot of information packed in there, but nothing that's giving away anything critical. Like we're 2 months out from release day. We have no idea who the actual antagonist of this game is.
Except the Emmy.
Yeah, but even then, we don't know who's running the show story-wise. So
yeah,
that's fascinating to me.
But I appreciate that they're keeping all their cards close to their chest. I feel because going in with that mystery, I think, is just making the surprise, I think, all the more enjoyable. Because I was thinking about it, this is like the first Metroid game that I personally have gone into with such little knowledge.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm definitely like every little scrap has like just been like a joy to think about, and just kind of look at and like kind of dissect, I think. So
definitely makes you wonder how they're going to do the rollout for Prime 4, doesn't it? So,
well, cross that bridge when we come to it, you know. Yeah, but right now my mind is all dread all the time. So
yeah, that's no lie right there. Shit, that's half my Twitter feed, and it'll probably stay half my Twitter feed between now and October, and I'm okay with this.
So. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, I think we've hit a good place to round this out for this week, and we'll be back next week with more of our usual shenanigans, tomfoolery, and just harebrained, off-the-wall ideas. So, Isabel, you want to say goodnight to everybody?
All right, then. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone, and we'll see you next mission. Peace!